Hi Stampers, this is Barbara Reed, the Wexford Stamper, coming to you today with another project. This time I used the LILYPAD Lake suite to make this pocket card. And what a pocket card is you make a pocket and you do your embellishing on the pocket, and then you have a panel that slides out from the inside, and you can put your sentiments on there and any message you'd like to put on there. So this is a pocket card, and it has a bit of a masculine feel to it, so it would be great for a man if you need a card for a man in your life, or it's a great one for people who enjoy being around the water. So let me show you how I made it. Before we get started, I want to show you the set in the catalog. Okay, on page 133 is the entire LILYPAD Lake bundle. Here at the top we have all the images and sentiments. I really love the images in this. They're perfect for any kind of card that you want for someone who enjoys the water. We've got a heron and lily pads and sailboats and a sun, and this little image here is to create the water, and I'll show you that on how I did that on my pocket card. Okay, I love the fonts of the sentiments, and they are great fonts for someone if you're making a card for someone who needs some encouragement. So I just think it's an all-around great stamp set. And then if you buy the bundle, you will receive all the framelits to go along with it. And the framelits are nice because there's a couple framelits here that are little banners, so you can use those to cut out your sentiments and put on the front, just like I did on the pocket card. And then they have all the different framelits to cut out all the individual pieces as well. So this is a great set, great for summer. And let me show you how we made our pocket card today. All right, what I did is I started out with a piece of balmy blue cardstock cut at 9 inches by 6 inches. Okay, now before I did any kind of scoring, I took some balmy blue ink using my awesome new Stampin' Up! Pads, and I stamped randomly, kind of in alternating pattern, some of the boat images. So let me show you how I did that. I inked up and then I stamped off a little bit just to have it a little more muted. Stamp off. And I just stamped all over the front and the back. Well, it's not the front and the back yet, but all over the entire 9 by 6 piece of balmy blue cardstock. And I like to do this, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you notice that when I have an area that has a solid color, there's sometimes that I like to just do some tone-on-tone stamping just to make it a little more interesting to look at. And there we go. So there's some random stamping of boats, real easy to do. Remember, I stamped off to make it a little more muted, but you can choose to do it any way you like. All right, now we are ready to do our scoring. Okay, we're going to bring up our scoreboard. We're going to put the long end at the top. Okay, that is the 9-inch length. Okay, and we're going to score it at 4 1/4 and 8 1/2. That's it. And then along the bottom, so think of the way your boats are orienting. You want to make sure you're scoring at the bottom at 1/2, because that's going to be the bottom. That's going to fold up underneath to make your pocket. All right, and that's all the scoring you need to do. We'll put our scoring board away. Okay, now we're going to take our bone folder and we're going to go ahead and crease on all the score lines. Okay, there's the one. Here's my 1/2-inch one at the bottom. And then here's my little one on the edge here that we're going to fold in to make our pocket. All right, not a whole lot to crease, but there we go. We've got our sides ready to go. Now, with my scissors, I'm going to cut this little tiny square off here at the bottom. Okay, there's a tiny little square that's going to get cut off. Okay, and then I'm going to just wedge the bottom of that and the top of that strip. Okay, so up here and down here we're going to wedge because that's going to go inside under the front panel to make your pocket. Now along the bottom, we're going to wedge there. We're going to cut up here and wedge there. And then we're going to completely cut off this side of that small strip along the bottom. Okay, so this is what your template will look like when you're all done with your cutting. All right, now we're going to bring in my favorite adhesive for these types of jobs. It's tear and tape. Okay, so I'm going to put a small piece of tear and tape along the skinny end, and then another piece along the bottom. All right, and I bet you guys can figure out what's going to happen here. We're going to go ahead and take the backing off both of those pieces of tear and tape. And then we're going to fold them in. Oops, let me get that so everyone can see it. There we go. So we're going to fold it in. And then we're going to bring the pocket side over and push down. And there we have our pocket. Okay, we're all ready to go. Ready for our card that goes inside. The only other thing I do to my pocket is I have a 1 3/8 inch circle punch, or you can use whatever you have that's handy. I want you to pick which of these panels is going to be your front panel. I'm going to pick this one, I think. Yes. I'm going to slide this in here and just line it up so it's directly in the center. And I just punched out a little bit of a circle there. And that's going to be, if you notice my other one, where the little pull ribbon is, so that you can see it and it makes it easy for the person who gets the card to understand what to do. So that's why I put that there. All right, so let's finish up our front now. Okay, we're going to now use a square from the Stitched Framelit collection, and this is going to be the focal point on our card, right? To stamp that, we're going to be using the ocean image or the waves image, and we're going to be using the two colors that are most prominent on the card, and that is the balmy blue again and the blueberry bushel. Okay, so let me show you how we're going to do this. If you look on here, the dark blue is at the bottom, and then as we move up towards the top of the sunset, you're going to notice the water gets lighter. So that's exactly how we're going to do it with the colors we have here. So of course we're going to start out with the blueberry bushel. I'm going to ink it up, and I'm actually going to stamp it off once. Then I'm going to come up onto my square. I'm going to stamp once, and then I'm going to stamp one more time. Okay, and you can notice as you're looking at it, it gets lighter as you go up towards the top of the horizon. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing again with the balmy blue. Okay, I'm going to ink up the balmy blue. Okay. I'm going to stamp off, and I'm going to stamp an overlap with where the lighter blueberry bushel was stamped. And then I'm going to stamp a second time slightly above that. Okay, so you can kind of see the graduation of the color going from dark to light. That's what I was kind of going for. So that is the water in the picture. So let's go ahead and put those away. All right, the next thing we're going to work on is the boats. Now I've already taken time to stamp the boats with Memento ink, and I cut them out using the corresponding framelits. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and color those. And the colors I used the light cherry cobbler, and I colored in. Okay, that. And then I used Daffodil Delight on this sail. And then I use the Daffodil Delight on the stripes here. And then finally, I use the Night of Navy on this boat sail. So I'm keeping it with more primary type looking colors. And then I had my sun. This was stamped using the stamp from the set and then cut out with a framelit. And the way I made my sun is I took Daffodil Delight, darkest Daffodil Delight, and colored in the entire sun. Okay. Then I went back with a little bit of pumpkin pie, just around the edge. So I'm going to use the bullet point for that, and I'm just going to kind of go around the edge like this to give it a little more dimension. Okay, then I'm going to go back with my Daffodil Delight over those spots again and kind of blend them in. Okay, so that's going to look a little more three-dimensional, having that little extra piece of color. All right, so now let's start assembling on that square. We're going to need some dimensionals to do that. Okay, for the larger boat, I'm going to use a large dimensional, and he goes right here towards the front. For my smaller boat, Stampin' Up! Was smart enough to make these mini dimensionals, and I'm going to use a mini dimensional on the little boat, and that's going to go right up here. All right, now the sun. Now what you noticed on my card is the sun is sitting right on the horizon. So you're going to need to decide where you'd like it to sit, and then you're going to take your paper snips and cut off the bottom, and then that will be your sun on the horizon line. Okay, so I'm going to take my snips, cut off a bit on the bottom, and then I glued that sun right to the paper rather than using dimensionals, because I had so many things already in dimensionals, so I thought maybe the sun would just slide in the back like that and just sit nicely right on the horizon. I like that, how that turned out there. All right, so there's our scene for on the front. Before we stick that on front of our pocket, we're going to need to use our belly band. Now this belly band is 1 3/4 inch wide, 8.5 inches long. Okay, so I'm going to put the belly band behind my pocket because I would like my ends to come up and meet in the front, because the ends will then be covered by our little boat scene. So I'm going to just fold it around like that, make sure it's nice and straight and about in the middle of the card. And then I'm going to take two pieces. Okay, first I'm going to put a piece on the back here so it will stay adhered to the pocket. And then I'm going to put one on the front so that the other end of the strip will be adhered to this end. So let's go ahead and take off both of these pieces of tear and tape. There's one. There's two. All right, let's bring this back out front. Remember, we're starting from the back, bringing it around the front. Okay, we're going to fold that down. Now it's adhered to the pocket. Now we bring this around. And there we go. There's our front ready to go. All right. Now, we're going to go ahead, using dimensionals, we're going to go ahead and put our little boat scene on the front of the card. So I'm going to take my dimensionals and I'm going to put them at the bottom and top of the squares. I'm going to remove their backing. And we're going to put that right on the front, remembering that we wanted our strip to come around from the back so that we'd be able to cover where the two strips come together, and it'll look a lot cleaner when we give it to the recipient. All right, there we go. Now we only have one more thing we need to do. If you look here at my finished product, we're going to go ahead and put on this sentiment, and it says to see far is one thing. And then what we would do is we cut it out using one of the framelits in the set. Okay, so here it is, already finished. I stamped with Memento ink and then ran it through the Big Shot using the smaller one of the framelit labels. All right, so let's turn that guy over. Again, we're going to use the nice mini dimensionals. We're going to peel off the backing, and then we can stick it right there to the lower right hand part of our card. And then at least the outside of our card will be finished. All right, so let's go ahead and put that down here in the bottom right. Okay, there we go. We're getting there. Now we need to do the inside panel of the card, which is not hard at all. What you're going to have is a piece of blueberry bushel cut at 4 by 5 1/4, and then for on top of that we're going to have a piece of whisper white cut at 3 3/4 by 5. All right, now before we adhere those to each other, let's do the stamping that we need to do. Okay, if you look here on my finished product, I did some boats at the bottom, and then I did my sentiment stamping at the top. So let's go ahead and put that right there. I'm going to pull out my Memento ink again since I'm going to be using my blends. And I'm going to be using my boat image. So I'm going to stamp that there at the bottom right-hand corner. Okay. Then I'm going to take my Daffodil Delight, color that in. And then notice that I had Daffodil Delight here across the sails with the stripes. Okay. A little bit of cherry cobbler on this lovely sail. And finally, some Night of Navy here. Now on my sample, I just noticed that I did color in my boats with the lightest smoky slate. And you can do that if you like. That would be a great addition. Okay, now let's go ahead and put on our sentiments. Okay, remember the front sentiment was to see far is one thing. And then at the top of this panel, you're going to put the first sentiment, again using our Memento ink. And it's going to say, going there is another. And then underneath, I'm going to include congratulations. So this would be a card for somebody that has had some great achievement and you'd like to thank them, not thank them, but congratulate them for working so hard and reaching their goals. Okay, so now once I have that all stamped and colored, I'm going to go ahead and take my snail and I'm going to adhere the white panel right here onto my blueberry bushel. There we go. Now, one more step. We're going to bring in this amazingly gorgeous textured weave ribbon, and this is in, I'm trying to remember the color here, Gray Granite. This is a new color in the neutrals. I thought that matched really nicely with the color palette in our card. You're going to cut about 1 1/4 inch piece of ribbon. Then you're going to take a couple of mini glue dots. All right, you're going to put 1 mini glue dot right here on the front side of the card. And then you're going to turn the card over, the panel over, and put one directly behind where you put that other one. Then you're going to take your little ribbon, you're going to push it down on the front, and then you want to bring it around, leave a little bit of a loop at the top, and then squeeze it together. Okay, I tried to do some stapling, but the ribbon was a little too thin and I just felt like the glue dot did a much better job. Let's cut off that little string. But that's a nice addition to the card, and it gives the person a nice place where they can pull to open their card. All right, so here is the final. Now making that card a little smaller makes it a lot easier to push in and out inside the card. Okay, and with our little portion that we cut out there at the bottom, it's easy to see that ribbon and pull and see their sentiment. So that is the pocket card. Very, very easy. If you have any questions about any of the dimensions, you can find those on my blog. And on my blog, I have a lot of other samples, card samples that I made using this very same bundle. Thanks again for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon.